Hi, everybody. Jasmine Dodson here with Dodson Legal Group, and I am here with a very good friend of mine, Gianna Loftis, who was an owner of Home Instead. And today we're going to be talking about elder care from a different type of perspective, from a caregiving type perspective. So I'm going to let Gianna tell you a little bit about who she is and what her business is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gianna Loftis. And not only having been a good friend of Jasmine and absolutely loving this lady right here,
Thank you, friend.
but I am the franchise owner in Denton County of Home Instead. I have had the pleasure of owning this business for 18 years. Kind of the way that I got into it is my senior year of college, I helped take care of my dad a lot during his last year of life with pancreatic cancer. That was such a great joy and pleasure to be able to be there by his side, taking care of him, rubbing his feet, being very present during his last days.
Yeah.
And it was just such a special experience that I feel was ordained by the Lord. Um, then, after he passed away, I ended up getting a job in healthcare where I worked for hospitals and I did hospital consulting. And it was a fantastic job. I learned so much. Then, a few years into that, about 7 years into that, I learned about Home Instead and the availability to own the franchise here in Denton County. And I just immediately felt that calling upon my heart that this was for me, given my past caregiving experience, plus my healthcare experience. And from then on, I just went full steam ahead. I just knew that I needed to be involved in this industry and Home Instead and making a difference in the lives of seniors. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I tell you, this has been my great pleasure and honor to be part of this business. I call it my fourth child because it's really a huge passion and love of mine.
Okay, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the services that Home Instead provides?
Yeah, so what we do is our goal is to be able to take care of people in their homes, mainly seniors, but we do take care of the whole gamut of the community. Um, so what we do is anywhere from as little as taking people to their doctor's appointments, being their eyes and ears for the family when they can't be present, to end of life care at the very end.
Mm.
So our goal is to be able to train our caregivers so that they are ready for each different stage of the caregiving spectrum to where they can just jump in seamlessly. So whenever someone is hired, they are already trained on a Hoyer lift transfer,
Okay.
which is a very complicated transfer. But they're hired, fully screened, fully. We have one of the best background check systems around, drug tested,
Hmm.
and then we train them on all of the different mechanics for end of life care, even if they're just taking someone to doctor's appointments. But we want to be ready and prepared for end of life care.
Okay. So the caregivers that work for Home Instead will actually go into the homes of these individuals and work with them so while they're in the comfort of their own homes.
Correct. Yes, we go into homes, but we also go into assisted livings. Okay, it's kind of wherever they call home.
Oh, okay.
That's where we go. So
Oh, that's such a beautiful service.
the whole gamut of the caregiving spectrum, really, we're involved in almost every step of the way.
Okay. So if you had some advice to give someone who was considering uh, providing this service for one of their loved ones, what advice would you give them?
The very best piece of advice that I would give is to truly be prepared. Um, of course, a lot of times we're not. You don't know what's around the next corner. But if we can be prepared as much as possible, if we're starting to go ahead and put legal documents into place,
Oh, yeah.
in terms of power of attorney, guardianship, wills, trusts, all of that, so that there's a clear line of delineation when
Hmm.
changes occur. That is a beautiful thing. Families can go ahead and prepare, talk to mom and dad, like, hey, what type of assets do they have? How are the assets protected?
Right.
Do they have long-term care insurance? Was dad in the military? Could he access his VA benefits? If
Mm.
so, let's go ahead and get that process in place to where at least VA has all the right documents for when care is needed. All of those documents are in place.
And I know that a lot of times people hesitate, from an estate planning perspective, because they are afraid to kind of think about the future, right? But long term planning, not just for estate planning, but also long term care planning is something that's very important, right?
Truly important. I think the statistic out there is that 75% of an individual's money will be spent in the last 3 years of their care
Wow.
on medical expenses.
Wow.
Yes, so that's
75%.
75%. So that's an astronomical number.
Absolutely.
And a lot of families think, oh, well, Medicare will just cover all of this. And no, Medicare will not cover a
Mm,
lot of those expenses at the
okay.
end of life care. Um, Medicaid, a lot of people think, oh, well, Medicaid will cover this. There's some sort of government program that will. Medicaid is really only available for those that are indigent, below the federal poverty level, as you know.
Absolutely.
So the majority of the population is not going to be covered by Medicaid, which Medicaid does cover some home care services, but Medicare does not cover home care services. It will cover home health and it will cover hospice, but
Okay.
that usually is conjunction with a hospital stay or rehab stay that those services will be utilized. So families really need to be prepared because these expenses can really, really blow someone's assets to where there's not many assets left for the next generation.
Absolutely. And even from an estate planning perspective, I've seen it to where individuals have passed away and then maybe Medicare comes back and files a lien against their property.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, because if they had assets that they didn't disclose and they applied and used these benefits,
Right.
then they'll come back after them. So planning for Medicaid, Medicare before, you get to the worst case scenario is so important.
So important, and a lot of people don't know that there is a benefit out there. If you can go, it's usually a third party policy, get long term care insurance. Most federal agencies offer that. Most teachers associations offer that.
Okay.
Um, and long term care insurance is a great tool because that will help pay for assisted living or home care services such as ours.
Okay.
And one of the great things I tell people to do in our history of 18 years at Home Instead, I've only seen two people ever fully use the full maximum benefit of their long term care insurance
Oh,
policy.
wow.
So most people die with a huge policy still in place.
Okay.
So what I kind of advise people to do is buy a long-term care insurance policy that has a life insurance rider.
Okay.
So really to where it's more of a life insurance policy that long-term care insurance will help pay for, but then the heir ends up receiving the rest of that money that's left over.
Oh, wow.
So it's just not going down the drain.
Okay. So for example, you could purchase a long-term care policy. Maybe it's worth $500,000, but if you only end up using 200, then the remainder 300 would be a benefit to your beneficiary.
Exactly.
So that way you're covered for your long-term care where you can
Yes.
be in the comfort of your home
Right.
and have home instead come in or,
Right.
if you're in assisted living and then also providing a benefit to your beneficiaries.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one of the kind of keys that we tell our folks is if you're in your 40s, it's a good idea for you to start planning ahead to buy long term care insurance. I've already bought mine. I actually bought, like I said, that same policy where it was a life insurance policy with a long term care rider.
Okay.
Um, I have bought that for myself. So I advise anybody that is 40 or above, please go ahead and start considering that tool. I don't sell it. I have no meat in this game, but it's not a sponsored ad. It's not a sponsored ad. It's just a great tool that I feel will really help people out in the future that most people don't really know that is available.
Yeah.
So,
Especially if you're over 40.
especially if you're over 40, and if you do have parents that are, in their 70s, go ahead and see if that's even available to them. Talk to them, find out, do you have these policies in place?
Yeah.
I know that my in-laws have that long-term care. So grateful for that.
Yeah.
But then, other people in my family do not. So, we're having to make sure that we have assets saved to be able to take care of those people
Yeah.
in a different manner.
So maybe it could be a Christmas gift to in-law. If you don't want these in-laws to move in with you when they become older, you can purchase some long-term care insurance on their behalf.
It's a present that has dual benefit there, right?
It
Yes.
it keeps on giving. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, that would be a great option.
Um, so I know that you and I kind of talk a lot about the crossover between our two industries. So for me doing estate planning and you doing long-term care, you interact in a practical manner with some of the documents that I help my clients create,
Yes.
like medical power of attorneys, durable power of attorneys, declarations of guardianship. And then, we don't do the DNRs, but we can talk a little bit about that. But tell me, how important it is from your perspective when you have individuals who are trying to get their parents placement and care.
Yeah, so it's actually required by the state that we ask every family, because we're licensed by the state, we're required to ask every family about advanced directives, what advanced directives are in place. And a lot of
So,
times,
real quick, let's
yeah,
just
go ahead.
talk about advanced directives. So, advanced directives is the document where you determine if you are suffering from an irreversible or a terminal condition, if you want to continue medical treatment, continue the care and be kept alive in that condition, or if you want all of that type of treatment to stop. For example, if you're suffering from a traumatic brain injury, would you want to be kept in that state indefinitely or not based on the doctor's recommendations? Okay, so
Exactly. So, yeah, that's a great explanation of that. So, we are required to ask about advanced directives. And with that, a lot of times you kind of get the deer in the headlights look from the family, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And then we start asking, "Okay, well, is there a DNR in place? What type of documents do you have in place? Do we
okay, let's
have
talk about a DNR. So a DNR, there's two different types,
two
right?
different types?" Correct. Yes. So, there's the in-hospital DNR that is filled out directly with the hospital. They keep it in place in their hospital system documents in their EMR, the electronic medical records, of saying that they will not resuscitate you inside of the hospital.
Mhm.
And while you might have that document filled out in the hospital, it's not applicable to the home.
Right.
That's just a separate document that many families don't realize would have to be in place.
And the out of hospital DNR.
Out of hospital
That means
DNR.
that if you are in your home and someone calls 911, the paramedics will resuscitate you
Exactly.
unless you have this document.
Unless you have the out of hospital DNR.
Okay.
And so we see so many families that don't want to be resuscitated, but they have not completed the out of hospital DNR.
Mm,
So we are required by law, if there were to be an emergency, we will have to call 911,
got it.
and the paramedics will have to respond accordingly to the law. And that would include resuscitation if necessary.
Right.
So it's very important that families realize, hey, you know what? Yeah, we signed that document in the hospital, but that's not going to apply to the home. We are going to have to resuscitate them. We won't resuscitate them, but we'll call
Right.
911.
Right.
We'll call 911 and make sure that a professional who is well trained in that area will resuscitate them. And so that's something that's really important to be distinguished.
Do you ever have situations where maybe the kids or other family members are not necessarily on the same page about the care that's necessary?
Yes, 1,000%. That is a situation we see almost every day where we have siblings that have different interests at heart, different
Hmm.
goals and objectives for their parents. And, you know, it's really helpful if the family member ahead of time had an appointed power of attorney. Of course, there's differences between power of attorneys. There's, of course, the financial power of attorney.
Correct.
And then oftentimes you'll see the medical power of attorney being a different sibling. And sometimes those two don't agree,
Mm.
but we're required to make sure that they do agree when care is delivered in place.
Oh wow. Okay, so in your situation, if we have the daughter appointed as the medical and the son is appointed as the power of attorney, for your purposes, the two of them have to agree on care in order to move forward.
Depending, really, what we go off of is whomever signed our service agreement.
Okay.
Whomever's the one that signs it. So if mom and dad sign the service agreement directly,
Mhm.
then we're going off of what mom and dad say
Got
because
it.
they're the ones providing our directive.
Got it.
They're the ones filling out our plan of care. Now, if one of those, say one of the financial power of attorney signs us up for service, and that is fine, that's great. But when it comes to medical moves, medical decisions, we need to make sure that the medical power of attorney is consulted as well.
Okay.
That wouldn't necessarily involve us as much. That would probably be something, where if they decided, hey, we want to move mom to assisted living, that would have to be something that they would have to get on the same page with.
Got it.
Not
Got
so
it.
much us, but they would have to make that decision together.
That makes sense. I never realized that you had to deal with both the durable power of attorney and the medical because you are providing a medical caregiving type of service, but then you're also dealing with the business side.
Exactly. Finances are involved. So ideally, it's best if everyone is on the same page there.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier when we're dealing with mom and dad directly, and they're the ones that are they're still competent and making their own decisions, and they're the ones that are providing our directive. And then sometimes you do have children who want to completely direct mom and dad. Um, that have power of attorney,
Got it.
but mom and dad have not been declared incapacitated.
Oh,
And in those situations, if mom and dad want to do something different and they're the ones that sign our service agreement, we can't go against what the rights of the elderly are in the state of Texas. I don't like that name, the rights of the elderly, but that's what the state of Texas calls the documents.
got it.
So we can't violate those rights of the elderly in Texas. We have to follow is what their wishes are if they're the ones that signed our service agreement.
Absolutely. Normally at Dodson Legal Group, we recommend that you don't appoint co-agents. We recommend that you choose one person to make the decisions, whether it's for medical power of attorney or durable power of attorney. Because just like you kind of described, when you've got two people who've got two competing ideas, it's very difficult for things to move forward. And care can be kind of delayed
Exactly.
between fighting siblings or fighting agents. So we do recommend that, while you may have two children, it might not be the best idea to have them both appointed because infighting can occur. And, especially in these types of sensitive situations where, I've even had it in a guardianship proceeding where one child wanted mom to be comfortable and the other child wanted to follow the doctor's orders 100%. Well, between those two competing ideas, it ended up in a lengthy litigation because, again, one wanted to follow doctor's orders and the other ones wanted to keep their parent comfortable. So I'm sure you guys probably see that quite often as well.
Absolutely. We do see that. Sometimes you'll have, maybe there was a child that didn't thrive or didn't ever launch as quickly as others. And that one might, think, okay, well, they might have different objectives in place in terms of, mom and dad's care, what that looks like. Some people, want mom and dad in a facility. Some people want to keep mom and dad at home.
Right.
And of course, there's going to be different financial costs with each different objective. So I think that's really so smart of Dodson Legal to recommend that the same person, the same agent, works in both capacities because that really can delay care. We're all individuals. We all have different goals. We all have different desires
Exactly.
for our loved ones. And it's very hard to see, to have everybody all on the same page and everyone all get together and, move towards the same objective.
Yeah. No, I agree because at the end of the day, whether you're the one that's obtaining care for your loved one or you're the one that's on the receiving end of that care, you want to have the best care as fast as possible
Exactly.
without any delay.
And so many times these decisions have to be made so rapidly,
Right.
as you know.
Absolutely.
So it's something that if you have different parties, living in different parts of the country, everyone having to be on the same page, maybe, brother over in Colorado hasn't been able to actually see mom and dad physically and
Right.
really see the decline that they've taken. And if you have that sibling over in Colorado who hasn't seen mom and dad recently, they may not have the full perspective on the true care needs.
Right.
So many times you have to be present and see. What I like to tell families is, if you are at all able, and I realize that this is a huge luxury, but if you're able to take a day or two off of work and spend 24 to 48 hours with your aging loved ones and go through the full day, see what their day is like, and then you can really determine what type of care is needed. Are they having trouble at night? Is there maybe some dementia that's coming into play?
Right.
Maybe some sundowners and they're not thriving as well at night, but maybe you call them every day on the way to work at 9 o'clock in the morning. So you're getting a different version of mom and dad in the morning than
Right.
you might get at night.
Absolutely.
So if you're spending the full 24 to 48 hours with them, you are getting a true insight into what a typical day would look like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've had some clients where I've sat with them for 20 minutes and I'm thinking this person is fine. They've been diagnosed with dementia, but they're fine. But it does take a full, it's that next 10 minutes where I'm like, okay, now you're repeating
The same story.
exactly.
The same story has come up 3 times during this conversation. Okay, I can't really make a judgment call in a 10-minute visit.
Right.
And I think, unfortunately, that also happens with many doctor's appointments too.
Yeah.
Is, unfortunately, the way that our medical system works is there may not be a full gamut of time. So it's really, really important that notes are taken
Yes.
by family members, by any caregivers, and given to doctors so that they can have a true assessment into a typical day or, days as to how your loved one functions.
Right, and I think it's also important to not wait until the last minute to get
Exactly.
these documents in place, because if you're concerned that your loved one is incapacitated, then you can't go have them sign these legal
No.
documents because then they're without capacity.
Right.
Yeah, so if you don't wait. Don't wait to get your power of attorney, medical power of attorney, your will, your advance directives. Don't wait until there's questions as to capacity, because then there could bring up issues as to whether or not this person really had the authority to sign these
Right.
documents.
And then at that point, wouldn't that be required to go before a judge to determine if there's no capacity at point? Wouldn't that have to go before a judge to determine the next step of a guardian?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that is kind of the grayest area
Mm,
of legal practice, because you've got, like we talked about, you've got a person who can come in and spend 20 minutes with you and
right.
seem like they're just fine.
Right.
And so, as an attorney, if I have any questions as to whether or not there's capacity, I hold off. I say, no, we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
But I also ask the questions, um, do you have any siblings?
Yeah.
Are your siblings aware that you're here with your parent
Right.
or your loved one, that you're, trying to get these documents? I mean, those things are like a red flag to me. Like if the child is calling me for their, oh, my mom needs these documents, or my dad needs these documents, my mom wants these things done. We always have a conversation with the person who's signing the documents. Um, but even
Smart.
still, even if you go through all of the questions, and if they tell me that they're concerned because their parent might have dementia, I say, okay, let's pause. Let's take a step back. There's a document called a certified medical examination,
Oh.
which is provided by the state of Texas probate court. And the certified medical examination can be provided to the physician, and the physician can do a general assessment and determine whether or not the person has capacity to make business decisions, banking decisions, if they can decide on, if they can take their own medication, if they can do these things.
Mm,
And so sometimes I'll require them to go have this done, because that doctor is certifying that this person either has capacity, has partial capacity, or is totally without capacity. And in those instances, we don't move forward with the estate plan, and we say, okay, your only step at this point is to apply for guardianship, which can also be a costly process.
right.
And in our estate planning documents, we do include something that's called a declaration of guardianship, where an incapacitated person can declare in advance whether or not they want a certain person to serve, or if they don't want a person to serve. So if it comes down to a guardianship, there's not a custody battle. And that's essentially what it is. It's an adult custody battle. And I'm sure you've probably come across these types of issues in your line of work.
Yeah, we sure have. We have definitely seen those issues arise. Like I kind of mentioned before, we have to really take directive from whomever signed our service agreement, um, unless there is a guardianship in place. And of course, that person, whomever has the guardianship, if that is in place, that trumps all else. It does because we are going to follow that direction.
It absolutely does. So, in the hierarchy of authority, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but from a legal perspective, it's the person that has capacity,
Correct.
then it's the power of attorney,
Correct.
and then it's the guardianship.
Correct.
Because the person, if they have capacity, they can make decisions for themselves.
Correct.
Once they lose capacity, they may be able to use that power of attorney and medical power of attorney as a least restrictive alternative.
Yes.
But if it gets past that point, because a power of attorney and a medical power of attorney can be revoked by the person that signed it.
Yes.
So, and these people, you have to remember, are in a very vulnerable
Very
situation.
vulnerable.
So if one sibling is the power of attorney and another sibling wants to be, then that sibling can coerce that
Right.
incapacitated person to revoke it and sign a new one, which is the subject of many a litigation. Um, then we're at that guardianship level where the court says only this person can make decisions on behalf of this individual.
Right. And that individual no longer has the ability to make any decisions for themselves.
Correct. You cannot revoke a
Guardianship.
guardianship, right? It's an irrevocable court order.
Right. So that's a very big deal.
It is.
And that's something that families may not realize. But, if somebody does have dementia, a lot of times it is a great idea to go ahead and have that guardianship put into place
Correct.
if they're making very poor decisions or if you're finding mom wondering at night
Yeah.
in the middle of the night, and clearly she can't make any decisions for herself. And if there's no and none of these documents already in place, at that point, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and seek out a guardianship, even though that can be costly
It can
and
be.
can be cumbersome. But it's truly in the best interest of mom that there is a loved one that is making informed decisions on her behalf if she doesn't have those capabilities left any longer.
Right, absolutely. It's so important. And I would encourage anyone that if you know of someone who is elderly or that you believe is suffering from dementia and they are in an unsafe place, there are remedies available. You can contact Adult Protective Services, and Adult Protective Services can get the ball rolling to get that person the help that they need, despite whatever resources they may or may not have. There are government agencies out there that do protect adult individuals in these circumstances, and then they can make a referral to the probate court and have an investigator come out and help place these people into facilities that will accept Medicaid if they qualify for that. Or, they can maybe put a stop to abuse that's happening with a power of attorney, because I've seen it um, more often than not, unfortunately, where someone is acting as an agent under the power of attorney
Mm,
and believes that grandma with the Alzheimer's, she needs a new car. Or, you know what? Let's go to WinStar. That's right. Let's spend the weekend at WinStar because grandma loves to sit at the slot machines. Like those types of things. If you know of these things that are happening, I encourage you to reach out to either a guardianship attorney or adult protective services to make sure that these people are protected because they are in a very vulnerable position.
And I will say that Adult Protective Services around here is not a scary entity. It's not something we should be afraid of. They really are truly looking out for the best interest of the seniors of the community.
Yes.
So, if there's anything where you see, just like Jasmine mentioned, don't be afraid to call them if needed. And, it's okay if you call on your brother or sister who may be exploiting mom or dad.
Oh, absolutely.
That is okay. You are not going against your family if you feel like you need to do that. Um, we see that happen from time to time.
It's unfortunate how often that those situations come up because someone who's acting as an agent under the power of attorney may be thinking in their mind that they're acting in the best interest of their parent when in actuality they are abusing the documents. And it depends on whether or not the power of attorney allows. There's a box that can be initialed that says that my agent can serve and receive reimbursement for reasonable expenses.
Reasonable expenses.
Correct. That means, parking, okay, gas, right? Those types of things, reasonable expenses, reimbursement for reasonable expenses. And I encourage people that are acting, keep receipts. Make sure that you keep receipts. Um, and then there's another box that can be checked that says that my agent can serve and receive reimbursement for expenses and receive reasonable compensation. So, reasonable compensation is a legal term of art, as you can imagine.
Yes.
So, again, I encourage anyone acting as the power of attorney, keep receipts for everything that you're doing. Do not withdraw cash from an ATM.
No.
That is a big red flag. Don't withdraw cash. It doesn't matter if you are doing something for someone else and they need go with them to the grocery store. Buy their groceries separate from your groceries. If you go to Target, Costco, make sure you keep everything separate. If you're buying clothing for them, keep that on a separate receipt. So that way, if someone ever calls you out on it, you can have a line item of these are all of the expenses that we spent for mom, or these are the expenses that we spent for dad, and then reasonable compensation. Keep track of your hours. If you want, or if you're one of the people that are acting as an agent and you're getting reasonable compensation. If you normally work a minimum wage job, do not pay yourself a salary
No.
as if you're at a Fortune 500 company from mom's money. So these are the types of things that people misunderstand. But as an adult and as a fiduciary, you have a heightened responsibility to take care and make sure that everything is accounted for. It's not the same as if you were a child and you needed gas money from your parent. This is a very different situation.
And we've seen a situation a lot where you'll find one family member who may have decided to exploit mom or dad's money and pay themselves, to be the power of attorney a little bit under the table. And then that money adds up. Other sibling finds out about it.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden you have a very ugly family situation. So the best thing is do not go there.
No.
try to pay yourself an extraordinary amount of money for this because this more than likely will not end well for you.
It will not, and there are, not only civil penalties, but there are potential
Criminal.
criminal penalties for exploitation of an elderly person.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's an enhanced crime that can be prosecuted if
Exactly.
it's
And, that's one thing that we tell, even our employees when we hire them,
yes,
that taking care of a vulnerable population is a huge responsibility.
it is.
And if there's to be anything, we tell all of our employees to operate as if cameras are present in every single home. So we are not going to do anything that is potentially wrong or, in any sort of gray area. So when we're telling them that there's more than likely cameras in the home, we're also drug testing them, doing a full background check.
Yes.
Every county that they've ever lived in, we're doing a criminal background check because I will tell you, we have had some people that we have interviewed before that have worked on that are currently working on local websites. I won't name any.
Okay.
But when we ran their background check, there was one lady in particular that had a murder charge
Oh my
in
goodness.
Florida,
Wow.
about 10 years back, served time for it.
Okay.
Then afterwards decided to pack up, move to Texas. A lot of agencies won't check backgrounds outside of Texas.
Oh, okay.
And so she was actively working, taking care of people here in this area with a
Oh,
murder charge. I took it a step further after we did her background check and found articles about, the exact killing. She killed her husband, stabbed
oh
him
my
in the
goodness.
back. It was very violent, a very ugly murder.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe that this person was applying for a job
Well,
like that
as a caregiver.
as a caregiver.
Wow.
But, by the grace of God, we, were able to catch her because we do a full US wide Social Security trace background check for every county in which they've lived. So that's something that we are very protective of our population. And we also tell our employees when we hire them that because this is a vulnerable population, if there were to be any sort of um, idea of there being A&E, abuse, neglect, exploitation, we are required to report that to the state of Texas.
Absolutely.
And abuse, of course, can be, you know, not changing their depends timely,
No.
not rolling them every 2 hours if they're bedbound because of bed sores, potential bed sores. Exploitation can be, using resources. We try to tell all of our employees, you know what, just go ahead and bring your own lunch to work. Don't
Right.
even try to eat their food if they want to feed you. Just let's make this as clean as possible. You bring your own lunch when you come to work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take from them if at all possible. If they try to give you a gift, you must document that with our office. We must document everything because we don't want that to even potentially seem as
Right.
exploitation.
Right.
And a lot of times you have seniors that are like, "Hey, I really want to give you this plant. Please take this plant."
Yes. And you no, no,
How do you no,
yeah.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
Because that could be seen as potential exploitation.
Right. Because once that door is open,
Exactly.
then it's like all of a sudden you kind of feel obligated to receive gifts.
Right.
You don't want to accidentally receive a gift that maybe one of the kids was like, "Hey, wait a minute.
Wait a minute, that's really valuable.
Yeah.
Why did that caregiver come and take this? And next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call saying your caregiver stole
Right.
this item that, it would just be best don't take anything from
Right.
any senior at any time because that potential criminal investigation, the A&E charge, you don't want that because I will also follow your employment
Oh,
in our industry.
yeah.
We're required to do a misconduct registry.
Okay.
And so you will show up on that misconduct registry if you have if you have um, a charge of A&E, abuse, neglect, or exploitation on your
Okay.
record.
Wow, that's very important, and I think that, because I'm sure there are services or websites where not Craigslist, I don't think people are using Craigslist
I hope not.
or maybe, but, if you're looking for a caregiver for your loved one, this isn't the time to really cut costs because it may end up costing you more.
It's really in the long run. And there are, legal ramifications. If you are hiring someone off of a website, you are their employer.
Right.
And depending on how much you are paying them, you may be required to pay federal
Oh,
taxes
wow.
on them. You may be required to because of you paying them and you being their employer.
Yeah.
And then if you're hiring someone off a website that is working independently, What happens if they get hurt in your home? What
Mm,
happens if
right.
they slip? All of a sudden, you're potentially facing a lawsuit, if they slip and fall in your house. And I will tell you, that happens quite often.
Yes.
If you use an agency like ours, there's full bonding insurance, full comprehensive insurance,
Hmm.
and then we have full workers' compensation insurance. So if that caregiver is going to get hurt there, and I will tell you, we have seen so many different industry injuries
Oh, wow.
in our 18 years. We've seen caregivers slip on the front porch on ice,
Oh,
and that's a huge one. We've seen dog bites.
oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, we've seen dog bites. We've seen, um, you know, caregivers throwing out their backs, of course, with transfers. We've seen a lot of those. What else have we seen? We have seen a lot of different workers' comp cases. So it is worth it. It is probably worth it to just go with an agency because maybe those $2 extra an hour that you're saving really goes towards a lot more when it comes to those injuries.
It
Because
does.
I'll tell you, a lot of those injuries, I don't know why I keep saying that. A lot of those injuries are high dollar injuries.
Yes, yes. Where you get a personal injury attorney knocking at your door
Exactly.
trying to find out your homeowner's insurance policy.
Exactly. And those personal injury attorneys are not just going after the cost of the surgery to help that caregiver get well.
Right.
You're going off of a multiplier of
Yeah, pain and
pain
suffering.
and suffering,
Uh-huh, absolutely.
and you will end up with a lot bigger of a chunk of money to pay out than
Right. Your loved one that you're trying to protect their assets could end up going to a caregiver who gets injured providing
exactly,
care. Yeah.
exactly, and that's really not what you want. So I would ask families to truly, look into the potential cost of having that private individual
Right.
because it really could be quite large. And then what we do with our employees also is we offer them health insurance options, 401k.
Wow.
We really want to take care of our people so that they have the ability to continue with their loved ones for as long as possible and maintain consistency for their our clients so that they're not going through a bunch of different changes in caregivers. They had that
Right.
stability in place.
That's wonderful so that the person who needs care has consistency
Exactly.
with their provider.
Exactly. And that's really important if you have a loved one with dementia.
Right.
You really need stability, somebody who knows that person
Yes.
and is able to kind of recognize the care needs in advance before the loved one says, "Hey, I need this." That they're able to recognize those needs.
So if someone is looking to hire a caregiver and they're not sure if they qualify, will you sit down with the family and say, okay, what type of insurance do you have? What do you qualify for? And do you try to help them
Absolutely.
obtain the coverage?
Absolutely. Yes, that's definitely something we do is we go into the home, if they have a long-term care insurance policy, a lot of times families don't know how to read those policies or what it means. You'll oftentimes have an elimination period, which means a period of days or visits that will need to be satisfied before the policy kicks in.
Okay.
We'll go over that with them. What we normally do is we sit down and we call the insurance company together with the family member at the time of our initial assessment, which is free of cost.
Okay.
And we'll call the insurance company, find out what their daily benefit is, the maximum benefit, find out what sort of qualifications there are to utilize this. A lot of long term care insurance policies require a certain number of ADLs, which means activities of daily living.
Yep.
And that can be bathing, grooming, incontinence care, dressing,
Right.
ambulation, any of those services if they're needed. We go over like, okay, well, your policy needs at least three of these. Which do you need all of these services? Maybe you don't qualify yet for, our for the policy to be activated. Or maybe you do. Maybe you have waited a little bit long and you need all of these
Right.
services, and then, your policy should definitely kick into place.
Okay.
Also with veterans, if someone is a veteran, there's a benefit called the Community Care Network, which will pay for veterans to have care in their home,
Oh, wow.
depending on the type of care, depending on their care needs. And so we'll sit down, kind of explain the process to families
Hmm.
of what needs to be in place in order to activate their Community Care Network benefit. And usually that requires that you see a VA doctor
Okay.
and that you're in the VA healthcare system. But this is available to all veterans regardless of income, which is kind of unique because in the past there had been benefits only available to indigent veterans.
Okay.
So this is not based on any sort of monetary financial threshold.
So this is for all veterans who may need some type of home health care. They don't have to be
Exactly.
elderly. They could
Right.
be disabled and maybe need somebody to come once a week to help them at
Correct.
home.
We have had some veterans in their 30s before, some that have, been paratroopers,
Mhm.
and one whose parachute didn't open during wartime.
Oh my goodness.
And so he ended up with a terrible back injury. So he needed full care.
Oh wow.
So he was awarded these hours. And yes, he was a lot younger than our typical one who is normally, 80s, 90s. But it's definitely a benefit that is out there that the VA does not advertise. So most veterans don't know about it.
Okay.
So that's definitely an option too for veterans. And we happen to see a lot of veterans. My husband's a veteran himself. And so he loves the opportunity to be able to sit down with veterans and let them know about their benefits that exist.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, speaking of, so Gianna works with her husband just like I work with my husband. So that's another thing that
Yes.
we have in common. We've been working with our husbands for, so how long have you and Phil been working together?
We've been working together now for 3 years.
Okay.
I opened the business 18 years ago. He joined me 3 years ago after he sold his business,
Hmm.
which he had owned a very successful sign and printing company
Yes.
locally. And he sold that business and then came on with me. And he had no idea how much he would love this business until he got into the middle of it. Was able to start working with veterans, working with our clients, and I tell you, our clients just absolutely love him. We've had some really sweet little ladies just request him to come over from time to time.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, if we ever had been like, hey, I'm okay with you giving me my sponge bath. I'll take that. May not be the best idea.
I'm sure Phil is so good natured. He probably just humors them.
He just laughs. He was like, you know what? I'll do this. We have some requests to take from him to take clients to the casino. He's taking clients to the casino. You know, had a good time there.
That's awesome.
Yep. So it's been fun. It's been fun. It's such a great industry. Absolutely love our seniors. They are so much fun. And gosh, it's such a pleasure to work with them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's so important the service that you provide because you allow individuals to be able to continue with their daily lives. Yeah, you're just there to provide a little bit of
A
assistance.
little bit of assistance or a little bit of engagement. If they're getting a little bored sitting around watching TV a little too much, we'll come in, we'll, play some mahjong with them or play some games, do some puzzles, kind of stimulate their cognitive abilities a little bit more so that their brain gets going,
Right.
gets fired up. And that's something that we want to make sure um, they are not just left and to live a sedentary lifestyle
Right. And alone.
alone because
Yeah.
decline happens a lot faster when you're left alone. Medical decline, physical decline, all of that. When you're left in solitude, there's really a rapid decrease in your health performance. So
Okay.
we like to see our seniors active and engaged.
Love that. Yeah. Okay. Well, um, thank you very much for coming and talking with me
Thank
today.
you for this opportunity. It was so fun.
Yeah. So to find out more information about Gianna, and Homestead here in Denton, do you have a website that
We
you
do.
want people to go to?
We do. It's homeinstead.com/685. That's our franchise number. Go there and all of our information is there, or you can call us at 972-317-0900. And you can ask for Phil if you want to talk to anyone about services, and that's my husband. He'll be happy to talk to you, or if I'm there, I'll talk to you too, or Carol, our office manager. We're all happy to get involved.
And you're in the green building?
We're in the green, beautiful historic home on Locust Street. Yes, that's our color. So yes, we're in that green building right now.
All right. Well, yeah, if anybody needs any additional information about guardianship, maybe getting some power of attorneys, medical power of attorneys, those things in place beforehand, you know the number 4694 million. Give me a call and I can definitely help get you guys sorted out.
And I highly recommend Jasmine. She has done many of my family members, my will and advanced directives. So I highly recommend her.
Yeah, all sorted. Yeah, got
All in place.
all in place. It's a good feeling.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.